Mr. President, so glad to see you, sir. Please come in.
Scott, on 60 Minutes this week, you interviewed the President of Egypt. Rachel Morehouse is the producer. Scott, what is your job? What are you trying to accomplish in this kind of interview?
I'm trying to ask him the questions that he doesn't get at home. Mr. President, I've spoken to a number of your countrymen who refuse to call you Mr. President because they say you're a military dictator. This is a man who is accused of some of the worst human rights abuses of the last many years. In his own country, no one dares speak a word to him about any of that. And now here I was in this amazing position to be able to ask this man questions. Do you have a good idea of how many political prisoners you're holding?
We don't have political prisoners.
Is it fair to say the government of Egypt pressured 60 Minutes not to air this interview?
They tried to,
well,
absolutely.
They asked us that directly.
The interview took place at 8 o'clock at night at the Palace Hotel in New York, and by the time I got home, my contact at the embassy sent me an email. It says, "We are formally requesting that the interview not be aired."
Is that a request that you get often at 60 Minutes?
I don't believe I've ever received that request before.
I never have before.
Thank you.
Did the location of the interview factor in to the kind of conversation you had? It's interesting that it did not occur in Egypt.
It probably changed the scope a little bit just because it was on our home turf.
On our own soil. I think that's probably true.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Did they have any sense of what the questions might be before the interview?
Well, they wanted all of the questions in writing before the interview. I had a back and forth with them, I would say, for about a month, saying, absolutely not, we can't do this. This is not the way we work at 60 Minutes. We understood that he wanted to be on the world stage. He wanted to be a figure up there with powerful leaders in the Middle East. And so we pitched this to him, that those powerful leaders come on 60 Minutes.
Were there questions that you had identified, okay, he could tear off his mic with this question, he's not going to like this one?
We don't care. We don't care. If I have a question there that needs to be asked, really on behalf of the entire world, and I think, well, he'll tear off his mic and run out of the room, well, then that's his answer. Mr. President, the organization Human Rights Watch says that there are 60,000 political prisoners that you're holding today as we sit here.
I don't know where they got that figure.
As a viewer, when you're watching the interview, you think, did he know what 60 Minutes is before he agreed to do this?
Well, that was what I wondered too. His record on human rights, as chronicled by the United Nations and the U.S. State Department, is absolutely dreadful. 800 people were massacred, protesters in the streets of Cairo. So it was really important to seize this opportunity because I don't know if he'll ever be questioned about it again. Did you give that order?
Allow me to ask you a question. Are you closely following the situation in Egypt? From where do you get your information?
How he might have decided to sit down with us and imagine that those questions weren't going to come up, I do not know. Thank you, sir. I hope to see you in Egypt.
When the interview finished, you thanked each other for the conversation. There was a plan to continue your reporting.
There was, yes. Take that off.
Was there any indication that this would go awry?
As far as the two principals were concerned, it was as cordial as could be. It was Rachel who took all the heat as soon as I left the room.
How did that play out?
It was continued pressure. They looped in their ambassador, the head of the Mukhabarat was involved in this, which is their intelligence agency. Very high-level people were involved in doing everything that they could to try to negotiate with us so that it was on their terms whether or not we are at this interview.
So what happens from there? You've got plane tickets booked to go to Egypt. Mm-hmm. This was just the first portion of your reporting, right? You had planned to go to Egypt and meet El Sisi there, correct?
That's right, and they offered Rachel the red carpet treatment in Egypt.
They did. And I mean, I think you said the best advice. You said just be very honest with them. We would love to go, tell them we would be delighted to go, but we're still going to use the interview from last night.